That I am going to brag a little bit about Don because he has his hands in almost every corner of aging in the Chicago area. He has gladly contributed to this project, to the Out Aging Summit, and is a volunteer in a number of different groups and organizations, is part of the Town Hall Apartments, and is an advocate beyond their walls for what our maturing and aging seniors are really experiencing here in Chicago and beyond. Do you want to say a little bit more? Oh.
Yeah, I think I'm going to. And I want to return the compliment, just that not as a matter of form, but as a testament to truth. I've worked with Jackie on several occasions, and she conducted volunteer training this past weekend. And I want you to know that you're in for a treat. She is a consummate professional and has the right temperament, and leaving her presence, you will be a different person because you spent the time with her. So thank you for inviting me to work with Jackie. I love it.
Hopefully in the right way. All right, so you are here for how to be an ally to LGBTQ plus older adults. Actually, Don, if you would honor us by talking a little bit about why allyship is important and why that should be a consideration for us as service providers.
Well, let me presume to represent the LGBT aging community and say first to those of you who are service providers to our community, we thank you for the commitment of your youth and your professional time in our interest. You are there to bridge the gap that we need in the services that support us in our life's journey. You are there to keep us from being invisible. You are there to help us as we transition to new times and new experiences. We have definitive experiences that come with aging, everything from moving into the Medicare generation, dealing with Social Security, dealing with big government, big medicine, big insurance, big hospitals, on and on and on. Things that are really crazy making. But we have a community of people who are dedicated to supporting us. And that's very important to us. We also count on you to recognize our history and our contribution. We are in the process of being the first out aging community. And so just as we have in every social advance in the LGBT community in the last half century, we'll be the first generation doing it. So we count on you to recognize our history, and we count on you to know how much we appreciate you as part of our legacy. And because many of us are baby boomers and older people born of parents who lived through the Great Depression and the Great War in the middle of the century and those kinds of things, we are a survivalist generation. And what we have learned and what we leave, we trust to you. So thank you for spending your time here with us today.
Thank you so much, Don. So you each should have a flyer. Does everybody have this? No? I'm not a huge fan of PowerPoint, so I'm going to try to make it a little easier. Pass those back. Thank you. Yeah, they're coming back. Okay. So, who here has heard of a concept called person-centered care? Yes, all of us. Who has heard of a concept called person-directed care? Okay, what does that mean? What's the difference between person-directed and person-centered? Or what do you think it means?
So just putting the person in the center, talking about them, or centering the work around them, you're allowing them and empowering them to direct the care, being in charge of decisions.
Right. When we visualize it, it looks different. If you think about centering someone, maybe they're in the middle of a circle, and there's all these people and systems and and ideas swirling around them, but they're not really in control of the process, right? So at my company, we talk a lot about health and aging on your terms, and that has to start with person-directed care. Our job as allies and as service providers is not to do for, but to walk with, right? Not if you agree. I'm somebody who likes a lot of feedback, so feel comfortable to yell and share your ideas. So when we talk about person-directed care and our role as allies, it starts with understanding and trying to put ourselves in the shoes of the person we're serving. I'm sure many of the people in this room have not just arrived at working with older adults. You may have had older loved ones in your life. You may have gotten here through other social service roles, right? Maybe you worked with youth. Maybe you worked with folks experiencing housing instability. And you've arrived here to working with older adults. And it's a new mindset. It's a new set of experiences, some of which you may not be able to relate to at all. So let's talk about and take a look at what the common challenges are for, in particular, LGBTQ+ identified individuals, and how you as a service provider or support person can really live into allyship. So, and I know that many of you in this room could actually give this training, but let's talk about what some of the most common challenges are, and I know some of them came out yesterday at the summit. So what are some that we hear very frequently from our older adults? Not everybody all at once. I know it's a big room. Yes, Jill. Isolation. Don, does that ring true?
Absolutely. That's the number one issue. Social isolation is a huge threat to the general aging community, and particularly to the LGBT community. Think of it as the other end of failure to thrive syndrome that infants have. Well, if we are not included, if we're not touched, if we're not involved, if we're not connected, we do in fact die.
And I talk oftentimes about the fact that we are 3 and 4 times less likely to have children and what that means. Because anybody who's been in aging services has some families in your mind where maybe they don't get along, maybe there's a family history, there could even be abuse in that family history, but folks show up when times get tough. Am I right? Right, so if their mother or father or grandparent is in the hospital and there's nobody else around, the kids will show up. We don't always have that luxury. We often do not. We're twice as likely to age alone. So we really have to come up with some new strategies and some new ways of thinking about our aging, because this is a pioneering population and we are pioneers in this room with a real opportunity to do this differently. So social isolation and loneliness are one of the areas of challenge. What are some others? Jeannie?
Stigma and infantilization.
Absolutely. Do you want to say a little bit more about infantilization?
So people are no longer trusted on their own sort of opinion to take care of themselves. What they say may not seem or appear as valid. People feel like they need to protect the older adults, sort of keep them in a bubble, and those are just some examples that happen.
Absolutely. And it's insidious in our health and aging systems. I cannot tell you how many times I have walked into a hospital room and a doctor has immediately spoken to me rather than the person with gray hair who happens to be in the bed. And this is about their care. It has nothing to do with me. My role is as an advocate, and thank goodness that we do that for each other, because so many balls can get dropped, right? If that doctor comes in the room and talks to me, at least the information is getting somewhere. They're not coming in the room and saying hello, murmuring something incomprehensible that the senior is not going to understand, and then leaving and not answering any questions. That happens as well, right? We've seen our people go through that. So there's bias and stigma within the system. There's infantilization that happens to our seniors. Other ideas, other challenges that you have seen your seniors have to deal with.
Navigation of the healthcare system and insurance is a big challenge.
I can't imagine why. It's so much fun for us. It's going to be a whole day endeavor for them, right? I saw another hand back here. Depression, absolutely, and mental health in general, right? We're about 2.5 times more likely to deal with mental health issues or substance misuse issues.
Only to add to it, sometimes there is undiagnosed trauma, unrecognized trauma, that can eat, and you're done.
Absolutely. Undiagnosed, unrecognized, and I think that's true even within the LGBTQ umbrella. One example I'm going to use is the HIV/AIDS crisis, right? So we have a whole generation of people that lost 50% of their support system. And that changes how we age. That changes how we feel about when we lose another person, when we're grieving, when we're dealing with that trauma. And it's hard for us as service providers to always understand how to support someone in that space. But we, in this room, I'm seeing a lot of folks who are already attached to LGBTQ serving organizations. In aging services, it's not even a thought. It's not even a consideration. When a person walks into the room, says, I'm a man who has sex with men, that is not a consideration that, well, you went through a war and you might have trauma related to that. And how can we support you through these next number of years?
We start out our lives in the closet. And the last thing you want to be is in the closet when you're 8. You know, I don't think nursing homes take into consideration a person's sexuality as much as they should.
Absolutely, absolutely. And thank you for sharing that. I'm certain many of us in this room have known people that either had to go into a nursing home or a long-term care facility for a short term or for the rest of their lives. And 80% of LGBTQ folks in those facilities choose to go back in the closet because they know or they anticipate that the staff and the leadership and the facility themselves are not ready to deal with them being out and the repercussions that could cause. Because it could come from staff, right? It could come from a well-meaning CNA who's trying to save someone's soul. It could come from a peer. I mean, you know I'm not lying. You know I'm not lying. It could come from a peer who has been homophobic their whole lives and uses that time, that enclosed space, as an opportunity to enact that hate. That absolutely is happening to our seniors and to our aging adults. Other ideas of challenges that this population faces. Yes, Pat?
Lack of knowledge of what sorts of resources are available and how to navigate the system to get those resources.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Kelly?
They're accessible, safe, affordable
Housing. And one thing we didn't talk about yet is money, right? So once we stop earning, then our incomes tend to become a little more restricted. And as LGBTQ folks, we're making less money throughout the course of our lives, typically. Two-women households are making significantly less money than the general population. So that really creates a crisis around aging. Where's a safe place to go that you can afford, where you can be yourself and be out? That's basic. That's basic. But it sounds like a dream to those of us in the room that really understand what older adults are going through. Yeah, Roy?
In my case, fear of being a victim, whether it be physical, somebody on the street wanting to attack me emotionally or monetarily.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's something that our seniors are living with every day and have for 70, 80, 90 years. So no wonder it's hard for us to find solutions that are affirming, that are person-directed, right? Because the personhood in the first place wasn't respected. So luckily, our seniors and this pioneering population is really thinking about things differently and has a number of strengths. Let's talk about what some of those strengths are. And then I'm going to ask you to share some of the strengths that you think that our aging population has.
Well, as I mentioned before, we are a survivalist generation. We've been through a lot of things. HIV/AIDS, of course, was the largest threat to our community since the Holocaust. Advancing in public recognition and inclusion is a marker of this generation, and something of which we are very proud. We have continued the efforts for full citizenship, and we've made some advances legally, and hopefully we're making some advances socially and culturally. We know what it's like to be on the outside. We know what it's like to live with limited resources. And we face challenges like the digital divide. We experience, in many cases, the information age as one that disenfranchises us. And the very services that are designed to meet our needs are ones that are hardest to access, because they require computer connections and other things that are just different from our socialization experience. When you can no longer make human contact, we're kind of swimming in areas that are not comfortable for us. But we will adjust to that because we have to. And we encourage a cultural change, actually, so that now that we're dealing with the third stage of life, we're not going to be preoccupied with seeing that as death, but as a culmination of life. We want to invigorate this experience. We want it to be full and lively, just as the other stages of life have been. And we want to visit with the idea of concentrating on quality of life rather than quantity of life.